When did you start dancing and where?
Oh, wow. I was told this story long after my parents passed, maybe, but um, my I have a god sister. My mother was the godmother of Carol Ann James, and she used to take me to see her perform. She said, but you used to get up in the aisle at 3 years old and just start dancing on your own. And so then she put me in dance school. So I started dancing at 4. I went in the year after.
Wow.
Yeah, with Mabel Hart, the Mabel Hart Dance Studio in Harlem.
In Harlem. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of history there.
Had you seen dancers that maybe made you want to do it or influenced you?
Oh no, I was influenced by everyone that was on the stage and the music. I think I was more connected to the music, how it inspired me. I grew up around music because my uncle was a famous jazz musician, Andy Kirk. And my father thought he wanted to be a jazz musician and played nothing but jazz. So I had been listening and had been bred on jazz music since I was a baby. So music was, my mistress, so to speak, or my lover at a young age.
Yeah,
Right.
we can relate.
Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
Stories in the room.
This is Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room. Join film composer Anthony Marinelli, who programmed synthesizers for 7 songs on Thriller, and A&R veteran film producer Stephen Ray, who assisted Quincy Jones and was in the studio every day with Quincy and Michael.
Michael Jackson's Thriller album. Stories in the room.
Did you fall into jazz then first, like dancing to jazz music?
Yeah,
right?
I did. I didn't even like pop. I didn't even listen to it. And I grew up on Dakota Staton and Fats Domino and Sarah Vaughan and Count Basie and all of those people. And that music really inspired me. So when I went to dancing school, it was popular type music. It was ballet music. It was, I don't know, Ain't She Sweet? I sang Ain't She Sweet, and I had little specialties. I had a little tap box that my father made for me that I used to dance on and at different events that I hated doing. Right. I hated dancing in front of people.
Right. I was just thinking, what other style of dance did you study when you first started?
I studied tap. I studied ballet. I studied modern. And then when I got older, I studied jazz, like when I got into high school. And then I studied modern dance at High School of Performing Arts. And then in High School of Performing Arts, I also studied flamenco and East Indian dancing and ballet. So I had a kind of a broad spectrum of dance, but what was on TV at that time with all of those type Busby Berkeley type musicals, and I loved it. I loved that whole style of, the 30s, 40s, 50s dancing. I grew up on that. So I just loved dancing as a kid. That was my outlet.
Well, that style too combined a lot of things, combined jazz and some ballet, and like the Busby Berkeley stuff was an amalgamation, I think, of dance and tap. They'd break into, one thing would flow into another. It was almost sacrilegious in a way.
Yes. It was, I remember being in my room and just being glued to the television and watching all of these different styles of dancing. And it was just, back then they did just so many different characters, right? You did stuff, down the street. You did, it was the Harold and the Nicholas brothers.
Oh, the Nicholas brothers, yeah.
Used to see that kind of dancing and that kind of tapping. Of course, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly were the ultimate at that time. Juliet Prowse, really Seth Charisse, those types of people. Those are the standout people that I really watched, as a dancer.
Yeah. Did you meet Sammy Davis back then in New York?
He came through Harlem. He paraded through Harlem and everyone, gathered around him. And it was like a little Pied Piper kind of situation. And so to work with him, like my second job out of high school, I worked with Sammy Davis and Golden Boy. And it was opening, it opened 2 blocks away from High School of Performing Arts. And I knew some of the people. My teacher, Lester Wilson, was in it.
Right.
And Jaime Rogers.
Right.
And I was studying with them, right? And so it opened while I was still in high school. And when I got out of high school, I was able to audition and get into the road company and went to Chicago and London at a very interesting time because Martin Luther King had been shot, right before we were supposed to open, and our opening was delayed 2 weeks because Chicago was on fire. And then 2 days after we arrived in London to open the show there, Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
So 1968.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
It was a pivotal time. And when we left the U.S., there weren't that many Black people on TV, right? So we were over there for 6 months, came back, and the Mod Squad was on, and just I was like, what happened? So everything shifted. There was a big shift in television. And then, which was great, because it was an opening for me now to be able to go to Hollywood and to get on a TV show. They were looking for someone.
And women, because Diane Carroll, right?
Yes,
That was
Diane
the first
Carroll.
lead.
Yeah.
I forget the other television shows that were on, but just everything was opening up.
So that brought you to LA. That's what
Yes.
inspired you to come this way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the weather.
Really?
The weather. New York was always so cold, and when I did Golden Boy, after I did Golden Boy with Sammy, then we did his nightclub act, and we traveled back around the United States. We came to Los Angeles, and I fell in love with the palm trees and the heat. And I was like, came back to New York City. There was a blizzard. I'm getting out. So Michelle, and my best friend Michelle and I, her father worked for the airlines, and you couldn't hardly get out of New York City. But her father got us on a plane.
Oh, that's great.
And we got out. We had $600 to our name, came to LA, stayed with our friend Jerry Grimes in an apartment about the size of the studio, the three of us. And he really, supported us and helped us get started. And then Sammy helped me get on, I think it was the Hollywood Palace show. He said, if you come to LA, I'll help
helped
you.
you.
He did.
Yes.
That's pretty great.
Yes.
It was so awesome. Yeah, I was just so surprised. Yeah, so anyway, so then the rest was history, and I kept working after that. I'm so thrilled.
Join us for the next episode of Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room, with your hosts, Anthony Marinelli and Stephen Ray. Watch our extended interviews on youtube.com/@StoriesInTheRoom. Audio-only interviews are available on all podcast networks. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok @StoriesInTheRoom. For the latest news and links, visit the website, storiesintheroom.com. This podcast is produced by Christian D. Bruun and David Wolf, recorded by Audivita Studios. Additional recording by Ben Rackless. Edited by Jay Spang and Sean Hedinger. Music by Anthony Marinelli and Stephen Ray.